In the last few years, I've been diagnosed with a chronic illness, so I'm now a member of the disability community. So my allyship has turned into self-advocacy, and it's really just been something that I've witnessed my entire life, and now I'd like to eliminate for other people so that they don't have those same experiences.
Our goal just happens to be enabling disenfranchised communities to be a larger part of the future that we're building for them, but also in time to allow them to lead the future that they've helped build.
So for me, technology is an opportunity for women to sort of level the playing field. If you can code, you can code. And I think that that's allowed for myself and for others to kind of open up doors and spaces that we weren't traditionally sort of guided towards.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the DevLab podcast. Today, we're joined by Meghan, Arielle, and Michelle, who champion employee resource groups in technology at Comcast. I'll hand over to each of them just to quickly introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into the wider conversation. So Michelle, if you want to start, just give us a quick intro to yourself.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Michelle Duncombe. I am a senior manager of product at Comcast, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Great. And Arielle, yourself?
Hello, my name is Arielle Ellis. I'm a senior specialist of talent acquisition, training, and engagement enablement. I'm so excited to be on the podcast today.
Wonderful. And Meghan.
Hi, I'm Meghan Mersch. I'm Senior Manager for Experiential Content for the Comcast Center campus in Philadelphia, and I am co-lead for the headquarters chapter of the My Abilities Employee Resource Group.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So, Meghan, we're going to start with you. And this first question is going to be to everyone. But Meghan, with you first of all, could you share a bit about your journey into technology and how you arrived at your current role in Comcast?
Sure. So I actually started in the theme park industry. So much of my early career throughout high school and college was in theme park entertainment and production. So I like to tell people I'm just a theater kid who found a job doing this in corporate America. So what I do in my role here at Comcast is I work on experiences across our two buildings. So we have two skyscrapers in Philadelphia that houses about 8,000 employees. And throughout the year, we welcome tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of members of the public to come visit our campus. It's very similar to any major tourist attraction in a city. And we have a number of experiences that members of the public can interact with. So my job specifically is creating those experiences, thinking about how our guests interact with our campus, and that includes accessibility. So I get to create things like closed captioning, descriptive audio, sensory-friendly experiences, and all of this aims to remove all barriers for entry to our campus. So anyone at any ability level, with a disability, without a disability, they are able to participate in these experiences using a technology and using adaptive tech to be able to experience this alongside one another.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. And is that is the kind of enablement and the accessibility that you're kind of focused on at the moment? Is that something that you've always had a passion for? Is that something that you've always consciously worked towards?
Absolutely. I have a sibling with a disability. So my older brother has intellectual and developmental disabilities. So much of my passion for this came from my lived experience as our family not being able to feel welcome in certain spaces or not being able to access sporting events or entertainment spaces that were not accessible to him. And then in the last few years, I've been diagnosed with a chronic illness. So I'm now a member of the disability community. So my allyship has turned into self-advocacy, and it's really just been something that I've witnessed my entire life, and now I'd like to eliminate for other people so that they don't have those same experiences.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, and really excited to delve into this further and find out more about your employee resource group and how you've managed to combine that kind of passion and that that lived experience with the career journey that you're on. But before we do find out a little bit more about Meghan's ERG, Arielle, it'd be great to come to you. If you could tell us a little bit about your journey into technology and how you arrived at your current role at Comcast.
Absolutely. I would follow Meghan by saying that I took a non-traditional route. I graduated with a degree in animation, and I actually started with Comcast in a call center selling TV, phone, and internet. My background is anything but technology, but because Comcast business is so much more than TV, home phone, internet, mobile services, home security, business services, advertising, and all of it through the lens of technology, it was really inevitable that my passion would intersect with technology. Personally, I was drawn to internal and external career growth. I actually got my start before becoming a leader of the BENgineers as just a professional who's looking to develop trainings and talks to encourage people to continue to pursue their learnings, to continue to pursue certifications, and really explaining and breaking down barriers that stood between myself and other people like me and access to that information. I noticed pretty early on in my career that there was almost an inequity in knowledge and an equity in access to trainings for folks within the call center. And just asking that question from call center to call center grew to, well, what about techs who work in the field? You know, how accessible do they find it to learn what kind of coding languages they should be upskilling in, learn exactly what goes on a GitHub page to turn a hiring manager's eye. And the more that conversation grew, it grew to an expansion of exploring the nature of work and technology. And just chasing those questions is really how I got my start, I'd say, at Comcast.
Fantastic. And I think like that's something that comes up on a lot of podcasts that we discuss. I mean, often the first step is having that curiosity and almost having that bravery to throw yourself out there and start to have those conversations. And I guess what was the process that followed that? So, for anyone out there listening in that is maybe thinking about a career at Comcast, what were the practicalities of kind of making that transition into your current role?
Well, I think one thing in my approach that is extremely specific to my experience is that I'm neurodivergent. I have a chronic illness as well. So when I think about my life, I have to think about all aspects of my life very strategically. And one thing that I do say to my mentees in this space is it's not just about the part that excites you. It's about understanding the road to it. And that first step really starts with knowing your why. Knowing why it is that you want to be so close to technology, knowing what it enables for you. I understand that the nature of work means that some of us timely take on tasks that are hard. Work is difficult sometimes. So coming back to remembering what about the world you're in it to change, who you're advocating for, really understanding and keeping that component for you locked at the forefront of your mind is what helps a lot of our folks continue to keep focus and stay resilient as they look to transition and move up in the ranks of technology.
Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah, already getting some great wisdom from everyone on the podcast so far. So great that we're already delving into the specifics and sharing a lot with our listeners out there. Michelle, we'll come to you last but not least for sure. If you want to take us on your journey into tech and how you arrived in your current role as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, so for me, it starts with a love story. I met my husband in college and we sort of made the decision that he would finish school and I would kind of support him and finish school and start working. I did that. I started to work while kind of like growing our marriage, our family. But while I was at work, I took advantage of sort of like educational opportunities that were offered at my jobs. And I was always like the kind of employee where if someone challenged me to learn something new, I would volunteer to do that. In that journey, I really discovered a love for data and analytics. I did go back to school and I finished my degree. And I really was trending in technical roles, always in healthcare, until I went to a conference. And anyone who's met me, they know this is like my origin story with Comcast. Went to a conference, met a lot of great folks, and I really started to understand like the skill set that I had. Like data was like applicable across industries. A nerd by heart, I love video games, I love media, I love movies. And so to meet that team from Comcast at that conference it sort of opened my eyes up to the possibilities of a career in media. And so I applied for a job and I was recruited for a job. One path would have sent me to continue as like in a data engineer path, and the second was more toward management. And at one point I was kind of like 70-30, like 70% doing more like product-y things and 30 like hands-on development. And so I decided like I could still build cool stuff as a product manager without having to like compile code at 3 a.m. in the morning or Saturday morning, in the morning anymore. Made the switch to product, and right now I have an opportunity to kind of develop software that helps our global teams manage sort of the information about content that you see in all of our products. And so love it. I love like my favorite part of my job is to like develop a solution and put it in front of people and see like that like wow factor. So love my job, love being a product manager. It wasn't a traditional route, but I think it's given me like sort of the ability to build software with empathy to make people's lives a little bit easier. So yeah.
Amazing. It started with a love story. I think that's the
It
first
started
time.
with the love story.
Yeah, it's the first of the DevLab podcast, which is fantastic. Always excited when we uncover a first. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about your work in the kind of being an advocate for women in tech
Yeah.
and that you work with?
So it's a great segue, because I think along with being like an untraditional route toward like where I am in business, but I also played sports. And I think being a woman in sports gives you kind of a perspective. Like the worst thing that I could hear is like you play like a girl. Like no, like I don't play like a girl. I just play like a great basketball player. And so for me, technology is an opportunity for women to sort of level the playing field. If you can code, you can code. And I think that that's allowed for myself and for others to kind of open up doors and spaces that we weren't traditionally sort of guided towards. Like growing up, I thought I was going to be a nurse. It seemed like that was a career that was kind of being herded toward me. So I'm really just passionate about not only women, but I coach basketball now, but young, like really growing the next set of like, awesome women technologists. And that's really why I chose kind of really to step into the role in tech women here at Comcast.
Amazing. It's great to hear so much passion on one call. And could you give our listeners a bit of a flavor of the kind of main objectives of the Women in Tech ERG?
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we have a space, a community for women technologists to really grow, to have an opportunity to meet with other women in prominent positions and really have mentorship pathways. And what we've really started also to focus on in the last year is that like that last kind of pillar that's important to me, like volunteering and like giving of ourselves to kind of bring up the future leaders in tech for women. So all of my passions are sort of like been combined within one organization with tech women.
Phenomenal. Yeah. And really nice to hear that, Comcast is so supportive of all of these initiatives that are, important societally, as well as allowing you to, impact different things within your career. It's incredible. So Arielle, same question to you. Could you give our listeners a little bit of insight into the main objectives of BENgineers?
Absolutely. So BENgineers is a technology resource group at Comcast that was actually born from a science project. Here at Comcast, we have a number of initiatives to keep our technologists engaged and thinking creatively. And one such initiative is our Comcast Lab Week. Several Black technologists formed a Comcast Lab Week team to build software together. And in building software together, they found community. Because it was so rare at that time for Black technologists to see one another and be able to work on the same teams and have something outside of their daily business as usual responsibilities that allows that, it sparked something really special in them. And following the success of their Lab Week project, the team came together to create the BENgineers, which is a portmanteau of BEN, the acronym for our Black Employee Network, and the word engineer, because the majority of our population started in tech or are currently in tech. Now, we like to call Ben our cousins, our corporate cousins, because we are born from that group. And our pillars are essentially within their framework to enhance, influence, and strengthen the relationships of Black employees in tech with each other and within the wider Comcast community, with that goal of fostering a culture of inclusion within our workforce. Today, the BENgineers boasts over 1,500 members across the domestic and global footprint. And the reason that we are so proud of where we came from is because we weren't necessarily built on a strategic initiative for inequity. We were built from the same place that my advocacy was born from. Curiosity. Is this possible? Can we do it? And when Comcast had an opportunity to step in, they sponsored that work saying, this is great. How can we help?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. And Meghan, we're going to come to you next. So yeah, exactly the same question in relation to my abilities.
Thank you. So, very similar to what's been shared, my abilities really focuses on inclusion. And, as it's been mentioned, we're so lucky at Comcast that we have these employee resource groups and other groups that are really able to just find a common goal and be able to celebrate that. And that's really what we do with My Abilities. Our membership base is really there to advocate for the disability community inside and outside of Comcast. So with any of these groups, we like to say you don't have to be to belong. So you don't have to have a disability to be part of this group. Anybody can be a member of My Abilities. We typically find that a lot of our members do have disabilities, whether visible or invisible, whether they share that or not. And really, what we're looking to do is promote inclusion and really push for positive institutional change for people with disabilities. Folks who are neurodivergent or have disabilities typically have a harder time finding jobs, keeping jobs, moving up into leadership roles. And, what we're doing with our employee resource group is creating those opportunities for people. So when you join an employee resource group, you can be part of a committee, you can be a committee lead, or like me, 3 years later, you can eventually become co-lead. And these are opportunities that, you don't have to apply for a formal job. It's something that you can do on a voluntary basis. So we operate a little bit differently, that we try and make it a little low stakes for people, especially for folks who may find it intimidating or may communicate differently because of their disabilities. So all of our events, all of our meetings, we really try to make those accessible for anyone, whether in person or virtual, whatever their communication style is. And we're just striving to make Comcast a better workplace for people with disabilities.
And Meghan touched on something really fantastic there regarding our employee resource ecosystem. All of our groups share the Comcast credo, you don't have to be to belong. We say this not because we can't separate or center separate experiences of women, of Black folks, of the disabled community. We say it because each of those communities, our communities, intersect in ways that we can't always see unless we invite people to listen to our conversations, hear our challenges, and learn to support people that you already work with every day.
Wow, phenomenal. Yeah, honestly, I'm blown away by the, like I said, the passion on the call, but also, the shared goals and the way that, Comcast has essentially brought you together to then tackle other issues. And again, it must be such a refreshing experience when you join Comcast and find out that there are these communities that you can be part of, that you have this support, that you have the access to these networks. I mean, yeah, there are definitely a lot of companies out there that could take a leaf out of Comcast book and learn a thing or two. Meghan, I want to stay with you for our next set of questions because you gave me a wonderful segue there. So you mentioned you've moved into the kind of co-lead position of My Abilities. So how has leading My Abilities shaped your advocacy for the disability community more widely?
Definitely a great question, and like I said, right around the professional development opportunities, my journey as a My Abilities leader has positively impacted my role at Comcast. So a lot of the work that I do around accessibility, I was already starting to do on my own, but also trying to find that path of how do I make a business case for this, right? How do I ask for budget and get the attention of leadership to be able to move these initiatives forward? And being a part of My Abilities has allowed me to do that. We've been able to put together programs that have been now mentioned in public impact reports. We did a program last year for Global Mental Health Day, where we did a full week of Mental Health Week programming. And that's something that now our chairman, Brian Roberts, is calling out in a letter to the public about the impact that Comcast has on the communities and on our employees. So, throughout my journey, it's not only empowered me to actually make institutional change, but it's empowered me to feel like I can. And I often say to myself when I'm thinking about these things, or I find myself going into a conversation that I'm nervous, or it might be difficult, or I'm having to give feedback about how we're doing something as the business that I feel may not be well received. But I just have to remind myself, if not me, then who? If I'm not speaking up for the disability community, who is going to? Because historically, nobody was except the disability community. And now, over the last, 30 plus years of the ADA being passed in the United States, a lot more people are speaking up and talking about it, not just because they legally have to, but because they now understand. And I think that's really where a lot of this comes from is, like it was just mentioned, right? If you don't have exposure to these communities, if you don't have an understanding of what this lived experience is like for somebody, you're not going to speak up on it, right? You either feel like you can't, or you just don't know enough to. So I think for me, this whole journey has just been building confidence and living my truth and being able to show up to work in that truth. and not feeling like I have to compartmentalize these things. I understand that as a leader at Comcast, I can be a disabled woman as a leader at Comcast. And that's not only important for visibility, but it's also important for positive change within our business and in our community.
Awesome. Very well said. And I guess to delve into some of the specifics, and you may have given us some insight into these already, but what types of initiatives does My Abilities lead to enhance disability representation and inclusion?
Absolutely. So, we have a lot of ways that our members can engage at their own pace. So something we like to do every year in October, which is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, I'm going to say NDM. Every year for NDM, we put out a number of programs, recommended reading lists, recommended watch lists. So these are things that are available to our members all throughout the year. So if they just want to learn more about a certain part of the disability community or the history of the advocacy, we will have books available to them, recommended movies to watch. And these are all ones that have been vetted by our members, people with disabilities who say, this accurately portrays disability, right? Because historically, media has not always done the best job in portraying that. So that's something that our members can do throughout the year, that they don't necessarily have to show up. They don't have to join a call or schedule an event. They can just do that at their own pace. And then throughout the year, similar to Mental Health Week last year, we do different programs. So last year for Global Mental Health Day, I think we had over 20 programs talking about mental health in the workplace. And these were leaders throughout the business sharing their own mental health journeys, outside experts coming in to talk about the science of happiness. We had people from our benefits team talking about the resources available to us. So as full-time employees, we have access to the Calm app. We have ComPsych resources. We have a health center here in our headquarters campus. So these are all things that are available to full-time employees that we really just wanted to share the message that aligns with what's important to us. And then we just also do membership drives throughout the year where we might just do like an ice cream social where people can just come. It's very low pressure. There's no formal program. They can come meet our leadership team, meet other members, and really just come to a safe space where they can feel like they're going to meet other people who have the same values as them, have the same goals, and maybe just interact with somebody they wouldn't have had a chance to meet in their regular job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, great to hear, that the initiatives range in scale, as you say. Some are just about making people feel welcome, making people feel comfortable, and feel like they can, belong within the business. And then others have much broader, far-reaching goals. So no, thank you so much, Meghan. Michelle, we're going to come to you with the next question. So how has your role as an advocate for women in tech influenced your personal growth and development?
Yeah, one big part I will say is that one great thing they do within our organization is that when people start the company, we have an orientation. So you actually come in and are given an opportunity to learn about our different ERGs. And so you are stepping into a community immediately and have opportunities to connect with other people. I like that. It's not always easy sometimes to make those calls, but I try to be visible for tech women at those calls because I think it's important for people to feel like you may have only been here a couple of weeks, but if you need a community, we're offering opportunities for you to connect with people as you start your journey. I think also for me, I've learned a little bit to kind of even more so kind of lead without like people reporting to me, like lead without authority. Being a lead of a ERG actually it's a lot more work than I was prepared for if you want to be intentional about really like serving the people who are members of your ERG. And so it's challenged me to kind of balance like my 9-to-5 job, but also a place of value and being able to be present and helpful. I think last is kind of giving me an opportunity to look at advocating for different tech women, participants for different roles. I see now that I'm in a position where I can say, like, I'm a product manager. We're always on the lookout for great engineers. And so now I start to look at different groups and start to like use that as a place to kind of say like, hey, we have a job upcoming, or even I'm sure Arielle will talk about the BENgineers as well, like connect and collaborate and say like, hey, are there any women you might feel that qualify for this position? So it's really kind of opened my eyes of like the value of having these type of groups. And then like if you just want to make that, put yourself out there a little bit to be able to help people and guide them in their career and their personal growth. The last thing I will say is I've met a lot of people, like people will come up and say like, I'm inspired by you. And that like always like throws me off a little bit because I'm just trying to make my little way in this world. But it does make a difference when I think when people see that you're approachable and that we really are in positions like to help people. So that might be the most rewarding part about it. Like I've met people where like, I saw you in a video, or I saw you at events, and then that growing into like mentorship and also friendship. So I think that might be the best part of being in Tech Women so far for me.
Amazing. And such a humble response to the impact that you're having. It's incredible.
It's surprising. It's overwhelming. When you meet someone, they're like, I know you. And it's like, I'm just trying to make my way in this world. But it's an example of you never know how you're impacting people. I've had people come up and say like, I've always wanted to be a product manager and I saw you at an event and you talked about it. So it's like a small way for us to make the world a little better. And I think that's an awesome position to be in.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think everyone could learn a thing or two. Everyone could be a bit more Michelle, for sure. And again, you gave me a great segue there as well. Turns out, you're all absolute pros at this business. So you mentioned, BENgineers and my abilities and perhaps some of the way that you collaborate. So could you maybe share some of the ways that Women in Tech does collaborate with other ERGs?
Yeah, for sure. Each of us has our own kind of like programming that we do specific to the kind of the group that we're trying to kind of nurture and grow. But we make sure that we kind of take advantage of communicating with each other. Because to be honest with you, as much as I'm a tech woman, I'm also a BENgineer, right? And there are a lot of people that feel the same way. So we've tried to make sure that we're open with each other as groups and we communicate well. And when there's opportunities for us to collaborate, like we talk and we meet. And so we have our own programming, but we definitely want to make sure that people see that we're like united together. Like these, Arielle kind of spoke to it best, like these things that separate us, they're only like by definition and nurturing the communities that we're trying to really grow, but they're just like imaginary lines. We cross over them in many different ways. So we want to make sure that we continue to work together.
Agreed. I'll barge in here and also add that we recognize that our BENgineers have intersectional identities that bridge our experiences every day. I didn't just become a member of my abilities when I joined Comcast. I was only made aware that I am a member of my abilities when I have been a lifelong champion of my own abilities and now the abilities of others. So in recognizing that intersectionality, we try to prioritize it in our content development strategies. To that end, we ask our community what their challenges are, who supports you at work, and we support those groups and those resources as well. We invite early career professionals to talk tech and learn about Comcast products, yes, but we also speak often about other groups and other events. We amplify each other's events that can center other demographic experiences, because that's what we're about at Comcast, listening to each other.
Yeah, and look, that's really apparent, throughout this entire conversation, the advocacy that you all feel such a passion for, and the ability that you all have to champion and to push for change. Yeah, it's fantastic to hear that everyone is kind of working together to support each other in various different initiatives. So Arielle, thank you so much for jumping in, because we're going to come to you next with a similar question. So how has championing BENgineers influenced your career path and opportunities?
What a question. I might get a little long-winded on this one, actually. well, the thing is, when you support technologists, you support everything that technology enables, which gives you access to learn about so many more jobs that you could do in this world, so many more people that you could help. Co-leading the BENgineers has opened my eyes to how very connected we are as a global enterprise, and allows me to gain access to opportunities simply because I want to help a growing number of people united by a common goal. Our goal just happens to be enabling disenfranchised communities to be a larger part of the future that we're building for them, but also in time to allow them to lead the future that they've helped build. Our BENgineers pillars are sow, show, grow, and know. We encourage partnership in local schools, student groups, and early career professional programs. We give a voice to professionals who might not get the chance at Comcast to present work that they built working on certification courses or outside schooling outside their daily work. We host executive fireside chats with intersectional leaders to connect our community to the larger direction Comcast is taking. That helps them chart their own career development. And we use reporting to show the impact of Black employees in tech where it might otherwise go unrecorded. That is just a small piece of what being a leader in the BENgineers community has allotted me. Like I said, when I started in a call center, I really didn't think that I would learn more about advocating for technologists, but learning about that and learning about those who still want to transition into tech has taught me more about how engineers move through the job market and where we still, as a wider industry, have so much room to support communities that aren't already immersed and supported by that technology. I've had the opportunity to bring virtual employees into HQ to connect for the first time since the global pandemic. I've had the opportunity to plan an annual conference. We've planned this conference in person in 2020. It was a major point for our organization, but we had the pleasure to bring it back in person again this year and celebrate all of the work that we're showcasing over our 5-year anniversary, even though we've technically been an organization for a bit longer than that. But our age on paper will always look fabulous. But advocating for these groups has given me the opportunity to show our community inside and outside of Comcast that Black history figures aren't just from the 50s to the 80s and are certainly not constrained to the United States. We are making history here and now all across the globe, and we can do that at Comcast.
Fantastic. And yeah, so show, grow, and know. I love that framework. Is that something that you within your ERG developed yourselves? Is that
We sure did. It's on the shirt, show, grow, know. And it's really the pillars of our community allowed us, because we started the BENgineers as a grassroots initiative. So a lot of our content comes straight from the heart, and it's about centering voices and about empowering others to speak. However, the thing about having an amalgam of creative ideas in the technology space is that there must always be governance. There must always be a framework. Your structure has to go somewhere. So in understanding and categorizing our passions through those pillars, it allows us not only to do the work that makes our heart beat, but it reminds us why we're doing the work and how enabling a more diverse tech talent pipeline creates a better future and holds us accountable for continuing to spread that message.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. And my second question to you, I feel like you've already touched on it to some extent, but was there anything else you would like to share with the audience around how your ERG collaborates with other ERGs to address disparities across different identities?
Certainly. Honestly, I did touch on it a bit, but I can expand on my answer by also including that as a champion of my abilities, as a non-binary person who is also a member of Tech Women, we champion each other's causes by encouraging shared membership. We acknowledge that when you come into work, you don't just come in as one dimension of yourself. You should be all dimensions of yourself that are business appropriate. Let's also be realistic about the faces we were at work. But we encourage building a schedule that isn't just from one ERG or one group. We want you to listen, learn, and act on the things that you are learning from a number and a multitude of the groups that we have here. We have 9 ERGs, not counting Tech Women and BENgineers. We're scoped specifically within a heavily technological leg of our business. But because we have a number of groups that regularly have discussions about how our identities show up in the work that we do and the interactions that we have, it means that we are always connected because we are more than just the groups we represent.
Fantastic. And look, I think if anyone out there needs to understand why diversity in the workplace is important, they need to sit down and listen to this podcast, because I think it's laid it all out there, right? The need to share those experiences and learn from each other and advocate for each other, but then also bringing those diverse ideas to the table that can then help a business and organization to grow and achieve its goals while encouraging its staff to, work on things and go after goals that they're passionate about and that perform that wider societal change. So thank you so much. And we're going to stay with you for the final question, which we will come to everyone on. How do you envisage the evolution of your respective employee resource groups? So for you yourself, Arielle, for BENgineers, how do you see that evolving in the technology sector at Comcast?
Well, the BENgineers got our start as a grassroots organization. So any evolution for us would likely follow finding folks who would be excited to be a part of our community, who would be excited to enable a future that's accessible and equitable, to learn to develop software, hardware, code, products, things that stand the test of time and show generations to come that technology doesn't replace humanity when all of humanity is included in the development cycle. So to that end, I would say that the BENgineers expand as far as Comcast will allow. And as we've seen, Comcast is extremely supportive of allowing our groups to shine and grow in this space. So really excited for everything we have coming this year and in the years to come.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Meghan, same question to you. How do you see your particular ERG abilities, again, evolving in the technology sector at Comcast?
Sure. So I think what's really special about these ERGs and these programs that we all do in addition to our job is that the baseline is zero, right? And one of my fellow ERG leaders said that to me when I became a co-lead. So I'm like, what did I get myself into? What are we doing here? And you know, they said to me, they're like, listen, the expectation is nothing. So anything we do beyond that is great and will be well received. And, you know, I think having that low stakes, low pressure environment allows us to do some really incredible things, right? When there's no limits and no expectations, I think we often exceed our own expectations. And that's my hope for the continuation of these ERGs with My Abilities, Tech Women, BENgineers, is that we all just continue to really think that the sky's the limit and then go beyond that and keep driving these initiatives. And what's so fantastic is so many of these groups, you know, that were grassroots efforts and are on a voluntary basis end up really impacting our business for the better. And I know with My Abilities over the last few years, we've had so many business units. I think in the year 2024 alone, we've had 10 different business units come to us for a consulting role and just wanted our feedback on a business initiative or on a new hiring practice or, you know, a new allyship training that's coming out. And I think that's really incredible that these organizations that started from nothing, came from nothing, and can be whatever they want to be, have become such a crucial part of our business. And that's really my hope and goal when I move on from the organization in 2 years and leave it behind, is I hope that it continues to be utilized in that way. And that across our entire business, the 200,000 people who work here can look to these organizations as a resource of truth and as that representation for these communities. And they continue to ask for that input and that feedback, and then they hear it and they use it, right? I think that's the most important part, is that these organizations are really recognized for the value add that they are for the business and continue to be tapped on, supported, and elevated to just create a better place for all of our employees here.
Awesome. Well said. And look, I think, you know, those really strong foundations that you've collaborated with people to build are certainly going to, you know, see your ERG go from strength to strength 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line. So no, thank you so much for sharing. And Michelle, over to you finally. In terms of women in tech, how do you see that evolving? What's coming next?
Yeah, for me, I continue to really be super passionate about really sort of our volunteerism umbrella and that pillar. It wasn't such a focus before. We did do events before, but they were more geared about sort of like your own personal growth. And I think for me, as long as I'm co-lead, I want to impart into the group the fact that the more you help others, the more you help other people. Like in my career, anytime that I was kind of stuck on moving to the next level, what helped me actually do that was more to like build organic relationships and really just give of myself. And I think if we continue to kind of push on that, to say like it's not just about your own personal growth, but it's also mentoring the next pipeline of women technologists that we bring forward, I think that you'll get that organic career growth from just that exposure and from giving of yourself. So I really would like to focus in like in the immediate like next 1 to 2 years on how being a volunteer and giving of yourself is just as pivotal to your growth and your career as the other events and programming that we offer. Super passionate about it. And I think as we have some more people come into the group that will really lean in on how we can lean into that pillar of volunteerism even more.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. And look, thank you to all of you. Really disappointed to say, unfortunately, we are at time now, but this has genuinely been one of the most insightful conversations I've had in a long time. And I think for anyone out there that is listening in, that is thinking about their next move in their career, wherever it might be, Comcast should be very high on your list, regardless of your background. I think joining an organization that clearly invests so much in positive change and clearly cares about the views, the well-being, and the things that matter to their employees, regardless of your background, regardless of whether you have lived these experiences that we've kind of talked through on this call. Joining a company that values the diversity of opinions and really values the employee experience should be something that really resonates with you, regardless of who you are and what your background is. So thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so much, Meghan. Thank you so much, Arielle, for sharing today. This has been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.